Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Jon Frederick. I'm the CEO and founder of Freddy Media, and today I am meeting with a guy that I really admire. Steve Glossinger is a golf course superintendent and general manager for over 40 years. He's had highlights in his career, such as hosting US Opens. Steve's been a mentor to me since I was 15 years old, and he is my stepfather. And Steve's somebody that's always given me a lot of inspiration in business. And today, as we speak with him, I think that that ought to rub off on anybody who's listening. So, Steve, welcome, and perhaps introduce yourself to everybody who's following along.
Yeah, thank you, John, for this opportunity. Hey, my name's Steve Glossinger. I'm general manager slash golf course superintendent at the Waynesboro Country Club in Waynesboro, PA.
Nice. And Steve, how long have you been running golf courses? You've been doing it since you were like 13 years old, right?
Well, yes, John, I I've been doing it a long time, over 50 years. I started in high school. Actually wrote a paper, career class when I was a sophomore in high school that I wanted to be. Back then they called it screenkeepers, and so I wrote a paper and I got an A on it.
There you go. Hey, put one on the board. Steve got an A.
Yeah.
And then, so Steve, you were a young guy. You knew what you wanted to do. You were a great athlete, right? You were like a baseball player. You thought you were going to play professional baseball. You got, I think, drafted into the Cubs organization. You were going to proceed with that and like kind of didn't want to do college, but you wanted to do golf course superintendent and you applied to Michigan State, but you didn't get into their golf course program, right?
That's correct. Yeah, 40 years later, they gave me an honorary degree up there. All things
I
turn
think one of
around.
the most interesting thing about Steve is he got rejected from the golf course program at Michigan State. But then over the course of your career, Steve, you've taken in so many interns from Michigan State, and kind of something that I think has been like the greatest contribution of Steve's career is he's always had a pipeline of young golf course superintendents that are interns at a turf grass program somewhere in the United States, be it Penn State or Michigan State. And they were always kind of like my stepbrothers. They were like living with me at the house in the summer, but they were going to work with Steve in the morning. And tell us about that, Steve, how you recruited these kids, you found job placements for them, and what did that mean to you and where did they land? Did any of them end up hosting the Masters or anything?
Well, that's dear to my heart, what you just said. I've mentored over 60 young men and women in the industry, and it helps when you're at the top three golf courses in the state, like I was in Michigan. So you can find, people want to go to the best golf course. So I had the opportunity to do this because, we were at world-class places my whole career. But it's dear to my heart. Uh, these young men and women, like I said, I think it was 62, my last count, and they all went out and prospered, good jobs, doing well in the industry, and I still keep in touch with 90% of them. It's been
You were kind of
something
like the
very
hottest
special.
internship in America because if you got a job with Steve, then you generally landed at some other awesome. Usually, somebody would reach out and offer Steve a superintendent job, and then he would say, "Well, I got a guy," and then it would be like Jason Mearsman or somebody else that was working for you. So it was really like the best job pipeline of all time. I think my favorite guy that you ever mentored was Jason Mearsman. He was always a lot of fun. Him and I always got in trouble when I was in high school. What did he end up doing? What job does he have?
Well, yeah, Jay was a character. He's a good man, a good superintendent. He's at the Patterson Club up in Connecticut. Very fine club, Robert Trent Jones Golf Course. Of course, I had his brother Dan, who he's actually a rock star in the industry right now. He's at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. He's doing
Ooh.
very well. But I was more than that. I was friends with their dad, and
Oh, no
we
way.
broke into the business. Yeah, Mike Mearsman, their father. We were two young superintendents that I was 22, and I think Mike was right around 23. We both had head jobs in the same area, and
Mm.
we grew up
22 and
together.
23, you
And
guys are running golf courses.
I'm running a big club actually, Signal Point Club in the South End, Indiana. But there was a guy named Larry Plim, if I could talk about that for just a second. But he was the
Yeah,
fourth
but
wealthiest
start us
guy
here,
in.
Steve. You're a young
Yeah,
guy, you're an assistant superintendent, you're basically a bunker raker. And that guy sees you at a club and believes in you and asks you to kind of work there? How did that happen?
Well, he was 5 miles away. He was a wealthy man. He owned a Collier Door Company. Any public building you go in, you'll see a little sticker at the bottom that says Collier Door. For one example, he did the whole Sears Tower with his window framing.
Mm,
The guy was the fourth wealthiest guy in Michigan behind the Ford family, the Dodge family, and all that. So very wealthy. So there was a job opening and lost the superintendent. I was an assistant 5 miles away. Somebody said, Steve, you ought to go over to talk. Give him a call. So I go over there. I'm nervous. He says, I'll talk to you, son. So I go over and he's got a job opening and we talk for, about an hour. He says, son, I'm going to take a chance on you.
yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, you're bold,
Without that
man. I
start.
mean, you've always encouraged
So,
me to, seize what you want, like have the fire in your belly to just reach out and take it and don't be afraid to do it. If you're too young or this and that, you just kind of grab an opportunity and go like hell. So you're 22 years old, the richest guy in Michigan ordains you to become a superintendent at a golf course. Were you prepared? Was the course great? What was the membership like? That's a leading question. I kind of know it became a little bit of a fairy tale for you.
well, Well, it was his own private club because he built it. He had plenty of money, but he had plenty of resources. But he had 65 friends that were invited. A lot of them were Notre Dame coaches, alumni. He was a huge Notre Dame guy, which the University of Notre Dame was only 6 or 8 miles away from Signal Point Club. So I loved Notre Dame growing up, so I got to meet a lot of the Notre Dame people. But back to your point, yeah, it was overwhelming at first, but when you're 22, you have a lot of energy. And I've always been a self-starter, self-motivator. And my grandfather always said, "Put your head down and go like hell." So that's what I did.
Yeah. No,
So
I feel like you've always understood me almost more than a lot of other people in the family where it's like, why is Jon 6 days a week at the car dealership? Why is Jon spinning this thing up? You've always been the guy who looks, everybody says, oh, he's doing his thing. Let him do his thing. He knows what he's doing. And so young guy running this golf course and suddenly you have these Notre Dame connections that kind of open your world up a little bit. You suddenly are friends with Lou Holtz, who's like the current head coach at the golf course. You're sitting at the end of the bench when Digger Phelps is the head basketball coach, and you get kind of pulled into this world. And did you know the golf world would be that like mesmerizing, where like this is the beginning of Steve basically becoming the most powerful people in every town's best friend? Because I think that's your superpower, is so many executives or business people or celebrities just need a day off at the golf course, and you've always been the best hang. So how did you string that together when you were 22? Were you intimidated to play golf with Lou Holtz or
uh,
Digger Phelps?
I guess I always had a lot of confidence and every good businessman or good leader in this world knows confidence is the most powerful thing you can have. When you have confidence, you can do anything. And I had a lot of confidence back then. I produced a good product, and I like relationships, and I just met these folks, and I was just being me, and it's a God-given talent, I guess. I guess I was blessed.
Yeah, you have an incredible drive. You're a 5 a.m. wake up. You're a go out and get it like crazy. But then the thing about, I used to work for Steve. I used to do course setup and caddying and all these things when I was in high school. I really am thankful for the opportunities you gave me. But when you work for Steve, you're working at a golf course that every day is up to championship standards. No matter what course you've ever worked at, whether it's Oakland Hills or Caves Valley or Waynesboro or Point of Woods, whatever, wherever you were, tell us about going to work every day and bringing championship standards to a golf course. There's never been a day that I've seen Steve let something go. If there's a little branch on an oak tree 50 feet up in the air, he's telling me to grab a ladder and get my ass up there and go rip it off the thing. Another thing is I really admire about you. You never let any of that kind of like bramble underneath trees kind of like leaves gather. Steve always clears it all out. So I mean, are you just a perfectionist, or how do you bring championship standards every day without getting tired, exhausted, or giving up?
Well, first of all, I've never felt like I get up to go to work. When you love your job, it makes it easier. But I've always had a real attention for detail. Someone once told me the big things will take care of themselves, but it's the little things you got to take care of. And so I've always kept that mindset and that philosophy. So it's the little things and attention to detail, and that separates a lot of people. And that's been my attribute all these years, John.
Yeah. And then, you're in this non-traditional work. You're in a non-college business trajectory, right? And you were extremely successful. And you're somebody that probably you skipped the college thing, but you always kind of knew you were going to make it. You knew that if you dedicated yourself towards this career and it was only going to be running golf courses at the highest level, you had conviction that you were always going to land at the top of it.
Well, I think that always was in the back of my mind. You got to work harder, uh, in which I did to advance my career. I worked extremely hard. I didn't have that big fancy degree like a lot of the folks do, but I worked hard and I earned it. And I was, guess you might say, I was street smart, and I
Yeah.
used that knowledge to advance my career.
Yep. And then, so Steve, let's talk about a really important moment in your career. It's 1995. You're kind of a younger guy, and you're the superintendent at Oakland Hills in Michigan, which is probably the best course in Michigan. And you get to host the US Open. So, what did that mean to you hosting the US Open? Clue everybody into what happened the night before, because you guys got hit by a storm that Michigan's basically never seen. The night before the US Open went live, you had like 4 feet of water deep in the bunkers, and you had to pull off a miracle to even host the tournament at all. And then what did that do for your career? Once Steve hosts the US Open, he steps up and puts something on and basically saves the day. What did that do for you?
Well, it was a awesome experience. It was, I had a lot of help from my colleagues. We had 90 volunteers for the week, uh, but we had a U.S. Open coming in town the night before Wednesday. We had, I think, our rain gauge overflowed at 5 inches. We don't know what we got, but it was a freak storm. The golf course was flooded. We had 6 feet of water on a lot of the fairways. Uh, I didn't panic. Kept my composure. I got the staff to rally. Uh, Tom Meeks, the USJ championship director, comes to me later that day, and I mean we're a mess, but we got pumps out. I got volunteers. We were well coordinated, and I told Tom if everybody stays out of my way, we'll have this golf course open at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. He didn't believe me, but we did it.
That's the greatest. That's the greatest Steveism, and clue everybody into it. There, you got three choices in business, Steve. Right? It's lead, follow, or get out of the way. And what is that? Who gave that
Yeah,
to you? Because you gave it to me, and I really live by that.
well, General Schwarzkopf, I got to meet him once at one of our conferences, and he said, you either lead, follow, or get out of the way." So I was a leader
Norman
that day
Schwarzkopf.
for sure.
I've been stealing his
Yeah,
line my whole life.
yeah, he's pretty good.
That's
Him and
great.
Lou Holtz are my inspirations. Yep.
Lou Holtz is the greatest. You and I share a love for college football. Lou Holtz is the man. So then after the US Open, you kind of had the pick of the litter. A lot of golf courses came to Steve because he just pulled off something that was extremely unlikely and it was successful. I mean, one of the newspapers in either Chicago or Detroit, like the headline was that like Steve Glossinger is the champion of the US Open because like basically I forget what the headline was, but it was really neat. And then you kind of had a few jobs laid before you, and you decided to go to Caves Valley up in Baltimore. Walk us through that. Like, you're faced with a decision where you can have you suddenly have whatever you want in life. And how do you choose the path forward? What's important to you? Are you picking the thing with like the best brand standard, the best lifestyle, the most money? How do you make a choice there? Because like you could have had some things here in Jacksonville, you could have had some things out in California, you could have had whatever you want, but you went to Caves Valley, so why'd you do that?
Well, let me just say, Oakland Hills was a fine golf club. It was ranked number 8 in the country at the time. Why would I leave a championship golf course? I love the members. unfortunately, we were a Teamster union. The entire grounds crew, the clubhouse staff, we were Teamsters, and I was doing
Well, that's just
everything
not
but
going to
what I
work.
loved. No, it wasn't going to work. So I went to my friends at the USJ and said, "Look, and the club tried to break the union. I'll give them credit to this day, but it didn't
Really?
happen.
Wait,
Uh, it
you're
did
the
not
head,
happen.
the president of the club at the time was Jimmy Hoffa Jr., right? Like your direct report
He,
was Jimmy Hoffa Jr.
he was the local steward up in Pontiac, Michigan. Jimmy Alpha Jr. Now, did he come to the club once or twice? He came, but he sent his lieutenants down to, for grievances and this and that. They would stuff. But
Really?
that just wasn't.
How are
I
you going to
did.
break
That
a
wasn't
union
what.
when you have to go right at Jimmy Hoffa Jr.? That's not going to
Well,
work.
they're called in Detroit. It's a big union town, Teamsters. That's kind of where it all started. But
Yeah.
there's these attorneys. They're called union busters. They would go in and break up unions, and we hired one. The club hired a good guy. He tried to do it, and we offered a buyout and everything. But the kitchen table and the boys, the folks, they voted it down, and I was depressed. I
Mm,
was distraught. I said, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I just want to manage a golf course. So then I called my folks at the USJ, and of course, my stock was high. And I said, if anything special comes along, can you let me know? And I got a
yeah.
call, and so there's a club down in Baltimore. They can't find the right guy. Can I think you might be a good fit? So made the call, and rest is history. Spent 22
Yeah.
years there.
And you kind of always have had this blessed career where you've been surrounded by probably the most interesting people. I think the people that have been, crossed your path over the course of your career are better than the golf courses or the stories or whatever. You have this really cool history of when you were a kid, you and your brother loved baseball. And like you would always be, you'd play in the backyard as Al Kaline and your brother would play as Brooks Robinson. And wasn't Al Kaline was some member at Oakland. He was at Oakland Hills. Al Kaline was a member.
Yeah, not only a member, we were good friends. We
Yeah, so
became
you
good
and Al
friends.
Kaline became like your childhood hero became kind of like your best buddy, and you guys played golf every week together. And then, so when you
Yeah, we
left
had a
Oakland
Wednesday golf
Hills
game.
and you went to Baltimore, who was the first guy you ran into when you got to Caves
First
Valley?
guy in the First guy in the golf shop was Brooks Robinson.
So you
He
kind
ended
of
up being
strung
my neighbor.
together. Yeah, you and
Yeah,
Brooks
remarkable. I
Robinson were
mean,
neighbors, and you were pretty close, huh?
yeah, my brother and I would play pepper when we were kids. Hot pepper you call it, where you hit the ball back real quick. We'd take turns, and uh, he was Brooks Robinson. I was Al Kaline, and we did that for years growing up. And the first two people I meet, one of the first persons was Al Kaline at Oakland Hills, and then Brooks Robinson. Unbelievable story.
Yeah. And Steve,
So
you ended up
anyway, I
becoming really
two
good friends.
with both of them. That's incredible.
Yeah. That I think
Yep.
that's one of the coolest parts about the golf industry is the people it brings in and how you were able to kind of like live out your childhood fantasy of like becoming your favorite athlete's best buddy. And that's when I met you when you were at Caves Valley and you really were kind of like a de facto mayor of Baltimore. When a executive was going to play golf, they'd call Steve and say, "Hey, can you get us on?" Or tell everybody a little bit about Caves Valley and what it was like kind of in from 2000 to 2018 and kind of like what was going on there. What was the scene? I mean, it was like a men's only business club. There it was kind of like rife with executives, sometimes celebrities, athletes. You got to play with Michael Jordan there. A couple presidents came through. What the heck was going on at Caves Valley?
Well, it was a national club. Les Dishroom hired me uh, back in late '96, right after the U.S. Open. And I'll never forget the interview. He says, "Steve, do you smoke? No. Do you drink? No." Everything you
You said
can't
no to
ask.
drinking?
Well, I said occasional. But anyway, so everything you can't ask, he asked. But he liked me right off the get go. He says, "I'm going to put you down at the presidential suite at the Marriott. You're not going home until we work this thing out." So anyway, it was a destination club, uh, high end. I mean, we had cabins with Tom Fazio design. It was the who's who of memberships. All the big dogs on the East Coast were members. The owner of the Ravens, Steve Bisciotti. I mean, it's just a
I remember being
wonderful
there once.
club,
Michael
good
Bloomberg
staff.
landed his helicopter there. Everybody had to hop to real quick, grab his bags, walk it up to the cabins, be real, prompt and kind.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good club, really good golf course, run by a chairman, one guy, and we had two other chairmans past that. But world class golf course, had cabins. You had to have it in great shape every day. There was no excuses. So you had to have it perfect, which we did. But the wait staff, the hospitality there, our golf pro Dennis, Nancy Palmer, the club manager, we all treated everybody with open arms, and we were friendly. And we had one rule: if a celebrity comes in, we give them their space. That was a rule to all employees. You had to give them their space, and which we did. That's why a lot of celebrities like going there. We gave them their
It was
space.
so private. Caves Valley was so private, and those cabins were really cool. And then it was fun, and because sometimes PGA Tour players would come through, or somebody would be playing golf, and Steve lived kind of in right on the course, but you were kind of back where like the facility was more, where like all the work stuff was, and people would come through, and they always knew Steve would have a grill going or a pizza oven, so there'd always be like a dinner or an event going on up at Caves Valley, but the after party or like the side event was always Stevie's house down by the facility. So talk to us how you blended kind of like a successful social life, or how your career really became social, because your job was not just to run the course, ensure that you were a successful general manager, but you had a lot to say in making sure that when a high profile person was coming there to play golf, you had to make sure they had a great time, whether that was like Jordan Spieth, or sometimes it would be the president. How did you kind of prepare yourself to host somebody and ensure that they had a memorable experience?
Well, yeah, that's first and foremost. Yeah, I always went on my way to make sure people got what they needed and were respected. But I go back to this. I guess I was blessed. I was a God-given talent. I just like people and confidence. I had a lot of confidence talking to these people, getting to know them, and a lot of people liked my swagger. And it was a lot of fun, and to meet these people, and you know what, they put their shoes and socks on just like you do, and so yeah, sure, they were celebrities and a lot of prominent people, and but I was myself, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
I make sure
As
everybody
I
had a good
always
time.
silently observed you interact with those people, I always kind of like knew to say very little. I was young and knew that less is more when it came to Steve interacting with somebody. So I'd always kind of give you your space and never try to interject. But I think you gave those sort of people a lot. You gave them an experience where they got to kind of like loosen up, take the tie off and kind of spend a day golfing. But also, Steve, like you're a great golf player. You shot your age a few times the past like 5 years, and tell us about what is being a good golfer when it comes to business. Because even caddying at Caves Valley, I'd be carrying a bag. Nobody would know that I'm like a little prep school kid. They'd have no clue who I was. They thought I was just anybody, whatever, a caddy. But like I would observe business guys put deals together on the Caves Valley golf course that were shocking. Like a $50 million deal on a handshake and then go grab a burger at the end of it. So like what in your experience, how important is being great at golf when it comes to doing business at the highest level?
Well, yeah, golf's a good avenue to meet people and do business deals. A lot of deals were made at Cays Valley, especially in our Lineberry, over a bottle of wine. Uh, but a lot of deals, I mean, golf is just that way. It's a way to get to know people. If you want to know somebody, go play 18 holes with them. It's a truism. You get to know their personality, just how they react to a bad golf shot, how they react to diversity on the golf course. You really get a sense for them. So golf is it's really a good way to get to know people, and and conduct business. And that was the model at Cays Valley. We did a lot of business out there, and a lot of our caddies, by the way, went on with prominent members, and they'd hire them
Really?
in their business. Yeah,
Mm.
tons of
So
them.
how do
Yeah.
you think how do you think golf is doing right now as a business avenue? I know that I kind of, turn my nose up at it. I live in North Florida where like, all the guys my age are like killing it. Or one of my buddies is, a wealth manager for like 5 PGA players. So he's out there playing golf with them all the time. And I think I shy away from it because I'm just not talented at it. I've never dedicated myself to it. So I surf, I hang with the kids, I do these other things, but do you think it's a worthwhile thing for, guys like your son-in-law, Grant Ackerman? He's like 28 years old. He's a tech founder. He's smart, went to Princeton. Is golf worth his time? Is it worth the time for my brother, Chris, who's like a territory manager for Caterpillar? Do you think guys like that, do you think golf is still the place to do it? Or do you think the business environment's moving so fast nowadays that golf is getting left behind as a networking sport, or it's needed more than ever because it's moving so fast?
Well, let me just first say golf is up about 20% since COVID. I mean, you remember the days that was the only thing you could do to get outside. So golf is up
Yeah.
20% because of COVID, and a lot of young people took the game up after that. It's still now one of the pitfalls of golf is, it takes 3.5 4 hours. We know that, but there's 9 hole stuff we can do, and there's short courses now to mitigate that, but it's still a good social activity. I see a lot of younger players come in. The game of golf, in my opinion, is healthy right now. It's been healthy for 3 or 4 years, and it's a good way to interact, meet people, have fun. It's a great sport. It's right between the ears of the game. Ray Floyd said golf is 90% mental and 10% ability, and he was right. It's
Yep.
it's a good mental game. Uh, so I think golf's in a good place, and I think a lot of young people. It's a good way to interact, to have a drink after the round and talk about things, and good way to conduct business.
So, Steve, the most impressive thing about you, I mean, you impressed me in a million ways. However, I believe that you knew what you wanted to do, you went out and got it, and then you worked like hell to get to the very top of it. So, if you're a young person nowadays, or you're mid-career, or people are facing the threat of AI, destroying their careers, or whatever the heck's going on, right? So, if you're somebody and you kind of, how do you figure out what you want to do, and then how do you go get it?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, some people just they get lucky, I guess. But find out what you want to do. Get started at the bottom level. I mean, don't be jumping around every 3 or 4 years. Find your passion. When you find your passion, just just go. I mean, you just put the pedal to the metal and just work your way up and do the best you can and stay with it. If you enjoy it, it's going to make it easier. You got to be self motivated and self driven these days. So if you're that person and you find your passion, uh, you can. Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit.
And then the other thing I think that you stand out in is leading a team. Your team has followed you from Michigan to Baltimore to Pennsylvania. They go where you go. So tell me about the way you treat employees. How do you drive loyalty? How do you keep them motivated? And how do you really lead and build a team in a way where, I really respect how your team, feels about you.
Well, first of all, you can't treat people like you're in the military. You got to treat your employees, each one individually. They all have their own needs, their own wants. So you got to get in their head, and you need to find out that some people need a little more motivational speech and whatever. But you build trust. Trust is everything, and you got to show them as a leader. You got to show them you've got their back. They get into a diversity or some adversities and some tough times, get have their back. If the HR's giving them a little problem, and you
Yeah.
think it's right, get behind that person. Get behind that person.
Don't be afraid to
Go out of the
don't be
way.
afraid to back your employee when, something's not right.
Absolutely. Go the extra mile. And once you get that, once they realize, hey, Steve's got my back on this, you begin trust, a two-way street, and it takes off from there. But it's got to be a two-way street, and you got to earn it. You got to have that trust.
Nice. Steve, let's close
And
on this. Tell me
yeah,
about a career in the golf industry. Is it what it used to be? Are there still great opportunities available there? Can a young guy go like hell and become the superintendent of Pontevedra and Club and make a great living and have a house on the course? And can somebody do what you did? You had the house on the course, you had a cool car, you had a bunch of social events going on all the time. You worked a ton. I mean, I don't envy your schedule because you worked nights, weekends, holidays, the whole thing. But like, can somebody still have like the awesome job at the best golf course in town where you kind of act as the de facto mayor? Does that still exist?
yeah, I believe it does. I know a handful of younger men out there right now that I know personally are doing this, what I did. Of course, things have changed now. Science and agronomy's all changed, and a lot of things have changed, obviously. But yeah, there's still a pathway, John. There's absolutely find your passion, get into a good internship, uh, get an assistant job at a nice club, start your interview process once you get your confidence, and once you get that head job, you just go. Uh, there's still opportunity to pay. Right now, we're the highest paid employee at most clubs. Superintendent's
Hmm.
salaries are anywhere from two to 100,000 to 500,000. I mean, it's a good occupation. The perks are there. You know, they feed, clothe you, take care of you, house
Yeah.
you. Uh, a good
Oh, I could
superintendent's
always
like a
sneak in
coach.
and grab a
You get a
burger.
good
There was
coach.
no, yeah. It's like being a head
Yeah,
coach of a football team.
exactly. You get a good coach, you keep him, whatever it takes. And you get a good superintendent, you keep him. Uh, and that I still see a handful of guys out there that I know personally are just thriving right now. They can name their
Mm.
price. They can name their price.